I'm going to get started. Thanks everyone for joining me this morning. Today's training is all around tasks and checklists within Command. So our theme of the month again is getting organized. And I know Kathleen went through a couple weeks ago on cleaning up your database. But utilizing tasks and checklists within Command is going to allow you to really kind of keep everything in one spot in terms of your to-do list, pertaining to specific contacts, specific transactions or opportunities. And so there's a couple of different ways that you can utilize tasks within Command in order to do that. Keep in mind, you definitely want to have the Command app downloaded as well in order to really utilize this and utilize the full potential of tasks, because not only you're going to get those notifications through Command of any tasks that are due, but through the Command app, you're actually going to get those notifications, those push notifications, and you can manage a lot more, I think, on the go. And I think a lot of these, whether it's like a call task, a text task, you'll be able to mark those completed through the Command app on the go, and vice versa. Of course, you're going to be able to do it when logged in through the desktop. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to dive into specifically more of the contact related tasks and the tasks applet. And then Kathleen is going to jump on and go through a little bit more detail on the tasks and the checklist associated with opportunities. So bear with me as I share my screen. Okay. So can everyone see my command? And I'm going to take the silence as yes. All right. So first things first, just where to navigate and find your tasks. So right off the bat, you should see a tasks applet on your dashboard of Command. And this is going to tell you everything that you have currently due or due in the next few days. So as you can see, I just have one upcoming. It says it's due in the next 7 days. So I can see my due date. I can see if it's a high or low priority, who it's assigned to. So if you're on teams, you can assign tasks to different team members, who it's linked to. So you can actually link tasks to a contact, and I can see what kind of task it is. So it's a follow-up phone call task. So one thing to note is if your tasks do not show up right at the top here, I would recommend clicking on this customize button. And this is going to allow you to actually customize your dashboard in Command. So maybe your tasks are down here. As you can see, I'm just clicking and dragging these around. And maybe you don't want to include some of these. So if you don't necessarily need a notepad on your dashboard in Command, you can uncheck this and then that section is not going to appear. If you don't really care about product updates, I mean, you can remove that. But otherwise, my suggestion is to kind of have the tasks and any recent leads at the very top. Goals, database health, those are both great ones as well. But again, my opinion, having these two at the very top. All right, and then just hit apply if you make any changes, and that's going to set your new homepage. All right, just have to move that Zoom toolbar. All right, so now you can see I have my recent leads at the top there. So I've got all my fake leads that I entered. All right, so the next thing is you also have an actual tasks applet within Command. So you can always click on that red box here to extend out the menu. So tasks is going to be the third one down. So tasks are going to come from 3 different places. So we're going to get into opportunity checklist later on, but they're also going to come from smart plans. So if you've set up any smart plans and you have, let's say you set contacts up on the quarterly call plan, you're going to get those task reminders to call that specific contact. So those tasks are going to feed in here from any smart plans that you have set up and that you have contacts set up on. And then you can also manually add a task at any point. So here's the tasks applet. So I'm going to see any tasks that I have to do. I can also filter by completed. So here's everything that I have completed already. I've got my date completed, what it was linked to. A lot of these were linked to an opportunity, and you can see that opportunity name. If I've archived any tasks, I'm also going to be able to see that here. So those 3 tabs at the top. So I'm going to click back to my to-do list. You'll notice that I can search for a task name. So if I've got a lot of different tasks in here and I don't want to scroll down, you can always search. You can also filter. So I can filter by past due, any that are due today, due later. I can do a custom date range as well. So that's really nice. I can sort by priority level, task type, whether it's a call, text, or just a basic task. If it's linked to a specific contact or an opportunity, if I want to just filter by any unlinked tasks, I can do that as well. And then I can also filter by where the task was created. If it was created specifically by me, if it was a manual task, or if it was a task that was created through an opportunity or a smart plan. So you can apply those filters and then you can view that. But otherwise, here is where I can create a new task. So if I click on that, I can enter in my task name. So maybe I want to say schedule listing appointment. I can link it to a specific contact. I can also link it to an opportunity directly from here. So I'm going to click on link contacts. I'm going to search for my contact. And you'll notice you can link it to multiple contacts as well. So maybe you've got spouses in here. I can add both of them and hit link. So here we go. It's going to show me who it's linked to. My task type. So I'm going to say this is going to be a call task. So I'm going to say in the description, call to schedule listing appointment. Next, want to list home this fall. So whatever you need to put in that description, you're able to do so in here. This hyperlink, so if you want to link to, maybe it's an MLS listing or whatever, you just have that option in here, this field to hyperlink or link this task to something if that applies. You can set your priority level. So if this is a high priority, medium, or low, I'm going to say that's pretty high. And then due date. So if you want to set your due date, maybe you want to just make sure that you're calling them by Friday. And then you can also set it by either all day, or if you want to call them at a certain time, you can enter that as well. So maybe 9 a.m. I'll do. That's when I'm going to get that task. I want to call them by 9 a.m. Hit apply. And then I'm going to hit create. All right. So now I've got, so I keep having to move my Zoom toolbar. So now I've got, you'll notice that if it's linked to 2 different contacts, I'm going to get 2 different tasks. So if you don't really like having multiple tasks, and maybe you just need to call the one spouse, you can just link it to one of the spouses, however you want to do that. And maybe you just want to check that off to get rid of one of them. Because like, I don't know, me personally, I don't like having any additional tasks that I don't necessarily need. So in my opinion, what I would do is I would unlink one of these, or I would just say I completed it, or archive. And you'll notice that you have some options over on the side here. So if you've completed something, so let's just say, okay, this one that's due on the 30th, I've completed it. The really nice thing about if it's a call or text task, anytime you complete that task, the system will bring this up where you can log that activity. So it's automatically going to prompt you to add some notes. So it's going to ask you, would you like to add activity to Lindsey's timeline? Yes. And then you have that interaction type. It was a call. So you can choose an outcome. So you have a drop-down menu here. So it's going to give the options whether you talked, you left a voicemail, or they didn't answer. So I'm going to say we talked, and then you can add that description. So let's just say, okay, the purpose of this task was to call to set a listing appointment. And I can say, set listing appointment for, let's just say September 1st. And then I'll just make a note, opportunity has been created, documents sent via DocuSign on date, let's just say today's date, 24. So any notes that you want to add, that's all going to get logged into the contacts detail page in your contacts. So then I can hit complete. And there we go. That task is completed. Everything's logged. So if I were to go into that contact, I'm going to see that description, that note in their timeline on the left or right-hand side of my screen. So then you also have options here, these 3 dots. So I can either edit that task. So if I need to make any changes to this, I can. And then I can reschedule it if need be. So if I want to extend the due date by a certain number of days, I can do that. Or I can just set a completely different date and time. So I'm going to cancel out of that. And then I also have an option to add a note. So if I want to add another description or a note for the contact, so I can do that. You'll also notice, so if I'm going to click back on that, the note titles are automatically in there. So this note is specifically tied to this task. So the system's going to say that note description or that note title, and then that description. So it automatically has it where it's a little bit more descriptive of what exactly this note is tied to. So that's really nice. And then finally, you also have the option to archive. So again, if I don't want 2 tasks, if I'm just calling one spouse, I'm going to archive this one because I know I'm just going to call Lindsey, let's say. So there we go. Does anyone have questions so far on the tasks applet? And feel free to unmute yourself or ask any questions as we're going through this. No? Okay, great. So again, keep that in mind in terms of the type of task that you're creating. I think it's really helpful and beneficial if you set up a task as either a call or text. And there's definitely going to be instances where it's not either one of those. If you just want to set reminders for, you know, maybe even just like updating your database and saying like, okay, this week I'm updating all of my A contacts or my, if you're going alphabetically, and you want to just stay organized with your database, you can set tasks up for those types of things. So it can literally be about anything. It doesn't have to be specifically tied to a contact, an opportunity. It can be more general tasks, just so you're getting those notifications on those due dates. And again, highly recommend that you are downloading the command app in order to utilize the functionality through the app as well. Because I would say most people are going to do most of this on their phone whether it's completing the task, logging the notes, the activities. If you're doing, let's say the quarterly call plan, or if you're doing a monthly call plan, and you're getting those notifications of, okay, here's the 10 people I need to call today, do it all from the command app, because you can just go down that line of contacts, click on the call, give them a call. Either maybe you talk to them, you left them a voicemail. The moment you hang up, the system is going to give you that pop-up to say, hey, would you like to log this interaction? So that's going to give you that pop-up on your phone as well. And then you can easily enter in that description, those notes, bam, it's logged into that contacts detail, so that the next time you need to call them, you need to refer back to what you spoke about last time. You have all of those notes in there. All right, so I'm going to see if Kathleen, are you on?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Is there anything else that I maybe missed with contacts and tasks? Otherwise, we can dive into opportunities.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think that's pretty much the outline of what's involved with contacts and tasks. It's really just like when you guys start really getting into smart plans and using them at a high level, that's where you're going to see a lot of those tasks for those opportunities come in. So if you don't have anything in here right now, know that you'll start to see them as you're using primarily like with a call plan, like a quarterly call plan. You're going to have those tasks to remind you to call people. And even if it's like you're doing a bunch of like Facebook leads, and then you put them on a smart plan, some of those steps to following up with that lead are going to involve you having to send a text or having to make a call, or maybe putting them on like a monthly neighborhood nurture, right? So those are going to come in as tasks for you to complete. And really, like, as you systematize yourself inside Command, my advice would just be come in here every day and just see what tasks you have to complete. And you'll see all these tasks on the mobile Command app as well, right? So what do I have to do today? You should never have to dig for an answer to that question, because you should have set your systems up so in detail that every day you have things to complete, right? And those are your tasks. So as we're going through a lot of this stuff in the next couple of weeks, really getting you organized, I would challenge you to make sure that you're building your systems out in such a way that you do have tasks that you need to complete every day, whether or not it's calling these 5 people, or it's, setting somebody up on the monthly neighborhood nurture, or it's running a CMA for somebody, right? All of those are tasks. So you should never sit down and say, what do I need to do today? Because there should always be something in Command for you to accomplish. So. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the opportunity sides of tasks, primarily for all the transactions that you're going to be doing, and thinking through, what do I need to accomplish to move them into the next step, to clear this contingency hurdle, to make sure that I'm on track for closing, and to make sure that it is, an successful adventure going to the closing table, right? So I'm going to go into opportunities, which is the handshake icon on the left-hand side. And my internet's being a little slow. It'll load, I promise. Okay, so here is my opportunity pipelines. I have my listing pipeline and my buyer pipeline. The third one is for leases, but you're not going to really do a whole lot of leases in the Milwaukee area, so we'll just stick to looking at both listings and buy sides. Under each pipeline, we have our 5 phases. We have cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed, right? So in order to get to the closing table, we have to go under contract. In order to go under contract, we have to be actively on the market, either an active listing or actively looking for houses. In order to be active on the market, we have to have an appointment, because we have to at least talk to our people and know what they want or need from us. And to get to an appointment, we really have to cultivate our relationship with our people so that, we could get the opportunity to work for them. So that's why there's these 5 phases through each of these pipeline, and they're the same. Now, inside of each pipeline, I'm going to just click on my buyers cultivate phase here. Inside of each phase, there's different stages. Okay, so in cultivate, you have your watch, nurture, and hot stage. Under appointment, you have scheduling, scheduled and kept, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of see all the different stages underneath this phase. My brain, though, I don't know if you're looking at this like me, but I don't understand what like watch, nurture, and hot mean. I mean, I get hot, right? Like that's somebody who's like, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? But I don't know the difference between watch and nurture. My brain works on timelines. So I'm going to change the names of these stages into something that is more realistic for how I want to run my business. And you can do all of that with this little edit pencil up the top that has a pencil and it says stages and checklists. So here's those 3 stages that are in the buyers cultivate stage, which is watch, nurture, and hot. Again, I don't know what this means, so I'm going to change the word watch. I'm going to click on this little pencil on the right, and I'm going to change that to say more than 2 years out. Okay. Now you'll notice there's a little probability percentage here. I want you to go ahead and just leave those defaulted. Don't change them because they'll make a lot of sense to you as you start to work with this. But this means that I have 5% probability to take somebody who's in this stage all the way to the closing table. And I would say that's probably pretty accurate. If somebody comes to you and says that they're more than 2 years out from buying a house, they might not ever buy a house, right? Or maybe they move to a different state and so you don't get to the closing table with them, or things are going to come up and maybe it's just not going to happen. So, or maybe they end up going into an open house and working with another realtor. We don't know. So the probability of closing somebody there is 5%. So again, I would change this nurture stage to something a little bit more how my brain works, which would be more than 1 year out. Okay. And then I would say hot is somebody who is less than 1 year out. Okay. And that's somebody who, maybe in the next 6 months, they want to start looking, which means I really need to start having consultations with them probably in the next 2 or 3 months so we can get that game plan together. Or maybe it's somebody who comes up to me and says, hey, our lease is up in December and it's August. Man, if you want to buy a house in December, you better come meet me tomorrow because we've got some things to talk about. Right. So that would be like hot for me, but we haven't actually had an appointment yet. So an appointment would be somebody that you actually sit down with and talk to and have that conversation about their wants and needs and then get them set up on like an MLS search. Okay. The other really cool thing that you can do for each of these stages is set up checklists. Okay. So what do I need to do with somebody who's less than 1 year out from buying a house? Well, one thing I would want to do, I would want to connect them with a lender. Okay. And you'll see here when you create these tasks, you always have the option to toggle this on, include in client update. What that'll do is it'll send an email to them and it'll help keep them on track with some of these checklist items. Now you're going to create checklist items that you maybe don't necessarily want the client to know that you've completed, like upload documents into Command. They don't need to know you did that, right? But maybe get connected with a lender is something that you do want them to know, right? Like, hey, here's also the reminder for you that you need to get connected with a lender. So you can toggle that on. And then you can also enter in more of a description. So please call my guy. Here's his number. Here's his email, right? So like you can give some of that description and that'll show up for your client. And then also that'll show up for you as well. So you can always just copy and paste that information, maybe into like a text message or something. And then priority level. So you can assign a priority level to your tasks. For me, if you told me that you needed to buy a house in December, then I'm going to say it's a really high priority for you to get connected with a lender. This will also rank this in your tasks that you see in your homepage when you come into Command. So you're going to get a task that says connect Bob with the lender, right? And it's a high priority. So that gives you something to follow up on, right? Remember, we're building tasks that every day when we wake up, we go into Command and we know exactly what we're supposed to be doing today. So you can go through and this little email sign here is saying that it's connected to the client update, okay? So you can go through and you can create all these checklists for all these various phases and stages within the opportunity. What you're doing is you're creating the master checklist, right? So if we were in the under contract stage, we can do the same thing. Oh, inspections. What do I need to do for inspections? I have to give the buyer a list of my home inspectors. I need to communicate with the agents in the transaction on the date and time that the inspection is going to occur. So we make sure that we have access to the property. I need to negotiate the repair with the other agent after the inspection. I have to make sure that any amendments that are executed are sent to the lender and sent to the title company, right? So there's little pieces of the process that have to happen during each phase. And you can create your checklist under these specific stages so that you know what to do when that opportunity arrives, okay? So let's pretend you've created all of your checklists on all of these stages. I'm going to back out. And I'm just going to create an opportunity real quick so you can kind of see what these checklists look like. So my market center, I'm going to do a buyer side. Your client does have to be in your database. So if they don't readily pull up for you, you can always click add new contact and then enter in their contact information and save it to your database. If you have the contact relationship in their contact record filled out, then there's related contact will also show up right here when you click on co-buyer. It'll automatically name the opportunity as your client's name dash either buyer or listing. At some point in time, we do ask that you change this to the property address. That just helps our compliance teams be able to find your opportunities a little bit quicker, specifically when they're paying out your commissions. So at some point in time, we do want to see the address somewhere in here. You can still have your client's name on there so that you can reference that easy. And then I'm just going to put in my commission rate for the buy side, and I'm going to go ahead and say that we're active and we're in negotiations. All right, and I'm just going to back out. Okay, so here's my opportunity that I just created. And now we're going to go under contract. So I'm just going to click on the opportunity and drag it until I see that blue outline around the under contract box, and then let go. And now we're here. Okay. So I'm going to pretend we are in the inspection phase. And now you'll see on the bottom of this opportunity card here, we have our checklist items, 0 of 4 items. And when I click on that, I can see all of those checklist items that I created for the under contract buyer inspection stage, okay? Which are give the list of home inspectors, communicate, negotiate, send amendments out, right? And you'll notice as I hover over here on the right-hand side, it asks me to add a due date. So if I know that we have 10 days for our inspection amendment to be able to negotiate the inspection and complete the inspection, I really want my buyer to schedule that inspection within the next 2 days, right? So you can add a due date for yourself that says, I want to make sure this gets done by tomorrow. Then also, I need to communicate with them. So I also want that to be done tomorrow, because that way I can get that home inspector in the next couple of days. Everybody knows what's happening and when it's happening. But then, we have that deadline of negotiations. Having something like, the negotiation checklist item, and then also putting that due date. If I gave myself 10 days for the inspection, I know that September 3rd is my deadline for my home inspection. Okay, so I can use that as a due date to kind of make sure that I am on track, or that I'm keeping track of things that are coming up that I need to pay attention to. Okay. You don't have to add a due date if you don't want to, so you can leave them blank. And then also, let's say I went ahead and I sent this email, I could come in here and click this little check mark right here and mark it as completed. Now, when I am in my opportunities, I can see that I've completed 1 of the 4 items that are under this inspection stage. Okay, so I know there's some things I need to do. What do I need to do? Click on here. Oh yeah, I need to communicate and I need to negotiate. Got it. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So let's go back to our tasks so we can kind of see how some of this plays out for you. So as Lindsey showed you, you can filter here between all tasks, between just the contact tasks and the opportunity tasks. And these tasks that I just added for myself that have due dates coming up soon are now at the top of my task list. So when I log into Command tomorrow, I'm going to see this again, that I have to set up this home inspection with the other agent so that I know that we're all ready to go and that we have access to the house. And then once that's done, I can click on complete. And then now this, hey, your negotiations for the inspection for Kathleen's purchase that she's making is due on September 3rd. Make sure you get everything done and any amendments signed before that date. What do you guys think about all that? Those tasks and checklists?
We have a quiet bunch today.
I think it's awesome.
What else did you, anything else I missed, Lindsey, on that?
No, I don't think so. Do you want to maybe go into the contact and show where these show up as well? Because I realized I didn't go into that specific page.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to back out to the home screen here. So when you are in your tasks, wow, you'll see that it is linked to the opportunity. So the opportunity tasks are linked to the opportunity. The contact tasks are linked to the contact. So you'll notice there's this little handshake icon right here next to the name. That means it's the opportunity. And if I clicked on this, it would send me to the opportunity page. So I would have to specifically go and find this contact. So if I go into my contacts, I can search the name. Here's my contact. And then if I click on tasks, see, it's not going to do it, is it? Yeah, so Lindsey, I think it's just contact tasks in the task record.
Okay.
But you can still get to the opportunity from here and still click into the opportunity and see your checklist in the opportunity. So contact tasks that come in from like smart plans, you'll be able to see in the contact record under tasks. For opportunity tasks that are created via those checklist items in the opportunity, you will see just on the tasks or inside the opportunity here. Okay.
And you can always add, if you are in the contact record page, like you can always add a task for that contact too from that screen.
And same with the checklist and the opportunities. If there was another task that maybe wasn't part of my master checklist, but I need to make sure it got done, you know, I could always create a task.
And there's no limit to how many, even going back to the stages per phase in an opportunity, there's no limit to how many stages you can add and how many tasks or checklist items you can add per stage.
And then you
So
can
like if you have a spreadsheet of like 50 different, maybe not 50 stages, but like a lot of different checklist items, you can add everything in here. This is essentially the digital version of like your to-do list, like your lead, like from lead to close, like this is your transaction management piece.
Yeah, and so if any of you have never done a transaction, this is to build a lot of this out. You know, it might seem a little overwhelming. What I would do is honestly, and I know you've probably heard me say this, but I would hire a transaction coordinator for my first transaction. I really wish I had one when I was a new agent. And they're going to be doing a lot of these checklist items for you, but you'll be kind of like following along with what they're doing. So then you can take what they do, make yourself a checklist item. Another time when they send an email about something, make it a checklist item so that, you know, every time a document gets uploaded in a command, make it a checklist item. When they fill out your commissions tab, make it a checklist item. Every time they do something for you, create a checklist item for it. And that'll help you build out this process maybe a little bit easier than you just sitting here and going, well, what do I need to do? Right? Because you've never done it before. So in your first couple of transactions, I would really take the time to start writing down a lot of what happens during a transaction. We do have some checklists for you on our website, our KW Realty MKE website. And if you took Accelerator, these are also in your Accelerator binder, so you can always reference back to them as well. But on our kwrealtymke.com website under resources, if you scroll to about the middle of the page, you'll see new associate resources, and we have these checklists right in here. You can use these checklists to help build out those opportunity stage checklists as well. So it'll say things like, make sure you set up showing time in MLS. If you're on the listing side, you can make that a checklist item then. Does that make sense? So we do have a few resources for you to kind of tap into to help you build those checklists, but know that over time, you're going to be constantly adding to them. I know when I started running operations for a team several years ago, I had a very basic checklist. And by the end, like 3 months later, it was 90 extra items on there just because I started really tracking every little thing that I did and making it part of a checklist for myself. The whole point of this is so that your business is repeatable. Does that make sense? That you are doing the same thing each time with consistency, because when you're consistent and you know what needs to happen and when it needs to happen, what you do is you build a system, and system stands for save yourself time, energy, and money. Instead of you constantly having to think what's the next step in the process, you now have a checklist that tells you the next step in the process. The greatest thing about Command is that you don't have to remember things once you build it. Whether it's a smart plan, whether it's the tasks, whether it's communicating with clients, once you remembering people's home anniversaries, remembering people's birthdays, once you put that into Command and you make it robust for yourself and you build the system, you don't have to remember that stuff anymore. And it's great. Right?
Yeah. And I would just add to, just keep in mind, there's the listing and the buyer pipeline. So you would have to do it twice. So you would do it for the listing pipeline, fill out the stages and checklist items, because obviously it's going to be a little bit different than when you do it for the buyer pipeline.
Right. Like, so your active listing pipeline, it's more about like getting ready to start a showing versus your buyer active stages. There's going to be a little bit more like set them up on MLS searches, right? You're going to have different activities for the client that you're working for.
Does anyone have any final questions? I know we're ending a little bit early, but yeah, that's the whole tasks applet and Command, and specifically how to really manage your sales pipeline with those tasks and checklists. All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, reach out to Kathleen or myself.